Welcome back, everyone, to the Meta Matters podcast. Still probably the only podcast in esports focusing on performance and coaching. This is season 2, reloaded, rebranded under the International Federation of Esports Coaches umbrella. We wanted to kick off season 2 and our relaunch with a short recap and reflection into what happened previously and what we've got to look forward to coming up. So, Matt, how was season 1 for you?
Very, very positive. Nerve-wracking at times. Little bit challenging too. Like when you start speaking on a podcast and you lose your train of thought, but you keep speaking and you have to sort of bring it back and land your point. Bit challenging, but yeah, very positive. I think connected with some really nice people, really sort of experts in their fields. Got some really good insights on sort of esports performance and coaching. So yeah, very positive. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough consistently being the most underqualified in the room and not knowing what anyone was talking about at any point. But yeah, super interesting. I think for me, the most important bit was meeting all the people that we've spoken to. Right, that's been the most interesting and the most, I think, valuable experience that I've got out of this. So on to season 2, mate. I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready to go. We've got a couple of episodes already recorded, ready to go. There's going to be a little bit of a transition where we figure out exactly what happens with the fresh recordings, but we're ready to go from here. Do you want to give a bit of a sneak peek into who we've got coming up and what we've got to talk about in season 2?
Yeah, for sure. I guess some of it is addressing mistakes that we may have made in season 1. For example, in the very first episodes. Yeah, all me. No mistakes, no flies on you. Yeah, I suppose in the first episode of the first season, I tried to sort of define tilt in esports, and it's come to my attention that maybe my thoughts on that weren't exactly correct. So we're bringing in some experts to address that and throw some new ideas around tilt. We've also got some exciting sort of guests coming on in the area of sort of parents in esports and trying to share their experiences of it. And maybe also looking a bit more at the sort of physical fitness and holistic side of esports performance. So all of that coming up.
Absolutely. So stay tuned. It will be going back to the weekly releases again as from probably this week or next week. So yeah, people, stay tuned. Thanks.
Looking forward to it.
Matt, we're back.
We're back.
Season 2, man. How you doing?
Yes. Oh, been too long. I'm fired up to be back on the podcast.
A nice break over Christmas and most of January. So ready to kick off again. So yeah, we're back with season 2. As always, I'm Tyler and I'm here with the wonderful Matt inside this very esports sexy spaceship that we're both in right now. And we're joined today by 2 very well-established physical professionals in the world of esports, Mr. Damien Andrews from Vexed Gaming and Mr. Jake Middleton from Adamas Esports. Do you guys want to give a quick introduction, kind of how you got involved with esports, whereabouts you guys sit with your orgs and what you do?
Yes, shall I go first? I'll go first, yeah. So I've been in esports now, I think probably for the last 6 or 8 months. I've done research study coming into esports, and that's how I kind of got into it. And it's quite interesting how I got into esports because I wanted to do my bachelor's degree in esports, but my supervisor was like, nope, you can't do it. It's not a sport. You can't do it at all. And I was like, okay, if I go in to do my master's, I'm going to do it. And we sit in this room for what master students, everyone's picking up. I want to do handball research study. I want to do velocity. I want to do all these other subjects. I'm going, yeah, I just want to do esports. Everyone looked at me and I was like, yeah, I want to do esports. And I explained everything. I was like, look, they've got reaction time, hand-eye coordination, everything to do with, you know, what we could bring to as a strength conditioning coach to esports. And then my supervisor was like, you're onto something here. And he supported me all the way from my master's. And even now, like, he's contacted me like, Damien, you need to do this. Look at this. This is so good for esports and stuff like that. And I'm like, I know, like, it's so great, like the support from that side of stuff. And then I managed to land in with a position at Vexed Gaming. So I'm their kind of like head of performance. So I handle all their physical side of stuff to the nutrition and a little bit of psych as well. So I kind of handle all outside elements, just make sure that they're kind of their stress and everything's handled well, and then they can just focus on the inside of their game as well. So I'm quite happy with their progress, and yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. I've actually had a very similar experience, Damien. So when I was in college, I've been like a gamer most of my life. I grew up playing traditional sports, and I used to compete in competitive Halo. So Halo 3, Reach, and 4. And then in college, I was getting my degree in exercise science, and I was kind of looking at the esports space, and there was really like nothing in terms of like health and wellness training. You still had all the players in the team houses. They're eating pizza all the time, not getting any sleep and all that. And so I was like, okay, I love esports. I love performance and fitness. Like, can I merge these two together and make a career out of it? And I started basically sharing some of these ideas with my classmates and stuff. And they're just looking at me like dumbfounded, like, what are you talking about? And, but I stuck with it. I did an undergraduate research study on exercise and esports performance, got some great results. I moved back to my hometown of Kansas City, Missouri, and started working with some local teams. Eventually made my way out to Los Angeles and worked with Counterlogic Gaming for a little bit. And then in 2019, I had linked up with Adamas Esports, which is where I'm at now. It's a startup company based in Vancouver, Canada. And basically, we're 100% remote based now because of the COVID world that we are in. And we provide esports programming with leagues, organizations, teams, individual players as well. And have been doing that ever since, as well as doing some research on the side as well.
That's excellent. Great introductions. And I suppose I should say why we thought about bringing you both in was partly because when we were planning sort of the second season of this podcast, we were thinking about maybe we should go down maybe more specific, detailed routes that are of topics that are, I think, important to esports, but maybe less understood. And I'd come across you both, and it strikes me that you both have really quite extensive backgrounds in sort of academic and applied ways with sort of the physical fitness and the physical training behind esports, along with a lot of other things. But it strikes me that this is a topic that comes up a lot, sort of physical activity, physical fitness and health, in combination with video gaming and esports. And I'm not sure if at the moment our understanding is where it should be. And it's great to have two people like yourselves on that really sort of know that area and can see what should be brought in from sort of traditional sports philosophies and understanding, and what really applies and what's really critical for esports. So I guess the first question, maybe the broader question here, is how important is physical fitness and training to esports performance?
You want to take? Yeah. I mean, so important. In short, like there is that mind-body connection. So what we do to our body physiologically is going to affect our psychology, and it works the other way around. The psychology, their thoughts and feelings, and how we respond to those, that's going to affect our bodies as well. So it's really important. And interesting research shows that the better physical fitness that we have, the better brain function we have, and that's even in younger populations. And so I think with all the literature out there on exercise, we know that it optimizes pretty much all the systems of the body, musculoskeletal systems, nervous system, endocrine systems, everything. And the benefits are pretty apparent for esports athletes. So it can improve your cognitive performance. It can improve your learning and memory, your energy levels, improves your mood, which I've seen some interesting research on that, showing that the better mood you're in before you play a match, the better performance you're going to have, which makes sense. Also improves your motor skills, like reaction time, like the research that I know you did, Damien. And then resistance to stress as well, which I think is a big one. Being able to travel, and which of course they're not doing now, but going to tournaments and dealing with those stresses. We know heart rates are really high in competitive environments. And so being able to deal with those stresses just is going to help you out. And then not even just the performance side of things, but the longevity, like being able to reduce your risks of pain patterns, injury, burnouts, improve your sleep, and overall quality of life. Like that's going to be a huge thing for professional players, but even if you're an amateur player as well. So I think that's really important. And I don't know if I get too much into this, but like I take the evolutionary perspective on things. So knowing that for most of our time we've been on this planet as humans, we've been hunter-gatherers. And so our genes really haven't changed. It's just in the last 10,000 years, modern society has been changing. And so we've pretty much engineered movement out of our lives with cars and elevators and escalators and all those things, which is great. Like, I don't want to have to walk to go to the store to get food. I want to drive there. But at the same time, we need to realize that in a sport like esports, where you're pretty much sitting for prolonged periods of time, movement is essential. It's essential as breathing. It's essential as eating food to sustain yourself, and that we need to make sure we're getting adequate amounts, throughout the day.
You literally covered everything.
Yeah, right. Let's pack it up.
Yeah.
No, I do think like physical exercise is like an important role. I think a lot of teams have started realizing it now. Like especially in the UK, I think Excel have done a really good job with their head coaches and stuff like that. But there's so many benefits that I've like realized working with my players is like their sleep. One of the most important things I think a lot of esports players forget about is their sleep. Just going exercise and getting a better sleep. A lot of gamers typically they will have 5 hours sleep, less than that sometimes. Their schedules are over the place because they think that they can just train maybe 10 15 hours a day and don't have to think about anything else outside. I spoke to a professional Fortnite player the last couple of weeks, and his routine was like about 15 hours in his bedroom. Like in his bedroom, he don't go out, don't do anything else. And you must think that the stresses he's on, probably he's going to burn out at the period. The injury rate for him sitting down for long periods of time, he's not looking after his, physical health. So that's a big thing that I focus on at the moment is I'm helping the players now, but I also want to help them in the future as well, because that's a long, important aspect that we sometimes forget, that they need to start looking after their kind of cognitive function after. They need to start looking after the injury rate, because if they get injured now, that could affect them in the long run. And I think that as coaches that we need to start sorting out as soon as possible. And with more research coming up to esports, hopefully, we get more noticeable.
Yeah, for sure. In everything you just said there, both of you, there's a lot to sort of unpack. I guess what strikes me is that there's different levels to this. So there's the sort of the day-to-day physical activity, and then I suppose on a pyramid from general down to much more specific, there are maybe the sort of the exercises, the training specific to esports. Do we know much about let's start at the broader end of things. Do we know much about sort of what are the minimum recommendations for an esports player to sort of maintain physical health and fitness? What should they be looking to achieve? And any idea, even anecdotally, if we are achieving that?
Yeah.
I'm going to start doing rock, paper, scissors.
I would say most of the times what I recommend is like the general guidelines that are, by most World Health Organizations. So trying to get at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise each week, and then 2 days of resistance exercise. That's usually what I recommend. In terms of what I've seen players getting that, from what I would see, I would say no. But I did see an interesting study that came out of, I think, the University of Queensland, where they looked at different players, and they found that professional players were more active than the rest of the population. So, I mean, we need more research, but it is interesting. I do think professional players are more active than everyone else, but at the same time, still not as active as they should be. And so I think, just trying to get those minimum recommendations, that's really all they need. And I think the great thing about esports and gaming is like, you don't have to have a certain body composition. You don't have to have a certain body type or anything like that. Like, you don't even have to be male or female. It doesn't matter. Like, everyone is at the same starting point when you play the game, and the game is the same for everybody. So, but of course, playing for long periods of time, dealing with the stresses and all that, like, you got to be getting at least the minimum recommendations of activity.
Yeah, that's similar guidelines that I follow as well. So I follow the ones by the NHS, which is set out exactly the same as what you just said. So it's good that we're on the same, page.
Same page, yep.
Yeah. So
that's really interesting what you guys said about professionals kind of doing more than maybe amateurish. Have you guys seen resistance from players in orgs you've been working with, assuming you guys sort of come in and start encouraging this transition from sitting in the bedroom playing 15 hours and sort of trying to break away from that stereotype of pizza eating, Red Bull drinking, he says, with a Red Bull can right here, basement dweller, to being a sort of professional athlete that does take time to exercise, eat well, sleep well, etc. Have you guys seen resistance from players making that transition?
Yeah, so me personally, I have my goal always going to esports was I wanted to change the kind of assumptions around gaming, because a lot of people think that, you know, we spend our time in our mum's basement doing nothing, but there's more to it, and I always wanted to change that. And a lot of the players I work with, I go in and I'm like, this is what I want to do, but then I try linking everything from traditional sports back to esports with them, and try building that bond with them. And I know that it takes time. I need to change their habits and to kind of give them the research, but I kind of break it in slowly. Like with the physical exercise side of stuff, I don't go straight into resistance exercises. I'll focus on maybe just going for a walk, or just going to start with the basics first before progressing up to something crazy where they could get injured. And then I just ask them how they're feeling after the walk, and they're getting the benefits from it. And then also when they start going up to maybe start going for right like jogs, or then they start going to resistance exercises, they're also going to get confident. A lot of people say they're getting different body compositions, and then they feel more confident, maybe talk to the opposite sex, for example. So there's a lot of benefits that people forget about this, and I think that's, you know, it's quite handy.
Yep, I completely agree, 100%. I think it's always good to start off easy. Like a lot of players I've found to have resistance, they know that exercise is good for them. Sometimes they even know how to do it. It's just they lack the motivation, they lack the time. There's all these barriers due to how things are set up for them. And so I usually start with just explaining like the why it's important, showing the research, like you had said, Damien, and then just finding like what's something that's going to interest them, what's going to be enjoyable for them. If they like playing sports like soccer, I found a player that really enjoys doing that. They don't like doing anything else. Well, then that's great. Just play some soccer. You know, and then I agree with you, like progress slowly, because I've seen a lot of players or even people from traditional sports that come in and they train these guys, is they're really training them hard, and you know, you're getting really sore and they're not enjoying it at all, and that's not going to make them want to continue to keep doing it. So just starting easy. Yeah, start off with some walks as a team, have some fun, and then try to just gradually progress over time.
Yeah, I think that is the most important thing. Like the stuff we do, we want to make it fun, because if they're having fun with it, they're going to continue doing it when we're not there. And a lot of my players, I hold them accountable for stuff. So I expect them to do stuff, but I want to make it fun for them so they continue doing it when maybe one day I'm not there for a session, and I hopefully, because it's a fun session, they'll continue doing it with them, and they can have a laugh and build that rapport as a team as well. There's so many benefits with building a rapport as exercise. You can do team sports and other bits as well.
That's such a good point. Yeah. And like I found with these guys, like they love to be competitive, these guys and girls. Like, so if you can make games that are competitive, like, you know, who can sleep the most, who can, you know, get the most activity in a week, you know, they love that.
Yeah, so that's actually something I'm going to do actually with my guys. Actually, I haven't told them yet, but I was actually going to set up like a challenge. I was going to set up like a challenge with them. So I expect them to do like, maybe start off with like some sort of press ups or some sort of exercise each week, and it slowly progress. But I want them to video themselves and compete against other players in the team. So once again, it builds up on that kind of competition within the team, and hopefully they get better from it, and it just, you know, improve themselves at the same time.
I love those approaches.
I'm obviously the dumbest person in this room. Once again, this is a recurring theme here.
Absolutely
but I presume that, you know, this sort of chain reaction of you know, improved physical health, improved mental health, leading to a higher confidence, also translate to a higher rate of wins as well. Because I mean, confidence is such a important skill within esports and any kind of competition. That, I mean, I don't know if the research is out there on that yet, but about whether that specifically having a higher level of confidence leads to improved performance. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not. It's
definitely in traditional sports for sure. Like tons of research on that. We know high confidence, you're going to perform at a better ability than if you didn't have the confidence. I don't think it's in esports, at least from what I know, but I would love to see that at some point. But I imagine it'd be the same.
Interesting.
Yeah, I suppose a carryover from like self-esteem, right? If you're content with how you are physically, maybe that carries over to other areas of your life, and generally raising your self-esteem is probably a good thing, certainly for sort of mental health, which we think ties to esports performance. Just to go back maybe a little bit, you've both spoken about, just generally touched on different types of physical training, so like fitness trainings that you could be doing. So you have the sort of increasing your physical activity with the walk, or sort of slightly easier sort of gateways to more regular physical activity. You both also mentioned resistance training, so strength-based training. How important is that? Is there a preferred type of fitness training? Would resistance training or strength training give you an advantage in a different way, or is there a reason why we should be engaging sort of more in that than another type, maybe aerobic? Throw that one on you.
I'll say, like, I think both are important.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if I had to say like an optimal exercise program for an esports athlete would be, you're getting your aerobic exercise, you're getting resistance exercise, you're getting mobility, flexibility exercise, and neuromotor exercise. And that sounds like a lot, I think, to a lot of people. But what's nice is like some types of training incorporate all of those. So like yoga, for example, yoga can be mobility, flexibility, but also body weight resistance. And you could even have an aerobic factor too, if you make the movements and poses more dynamic. So like tweaking things a little bit can help get all of those range of benefits. But I think just doing bodyweight exercises is a really great place to start for most players. And then trying to work them up to weights, because weights is just more beneficial for resistance. And it's funny, a lot of players I work with, they just want to get jacked. They want to get big. And so, you know, a lot of them, they don't necessarily have a sense of what they do in the gym. They'll go and they'll do the bench press a lot, but they don't work on their legs and things like that. So helping them kind of understand that is something that I think a place where you can get a lot of buy-in, where, you know, these guys want to get big and strong. And so it's a great way to kind of go about doing it.
Yeah, I think that is important to, you know, start at the basic side of stuff and then get that buy-in from them. I think that's the biggest thing as coaches, from psychologists or what we do, is get a buy-in, because if you're not going to buy in from the players, then they're not going to do anything we say. As much as we don't have qualifications and knowledge, they'd be like, no, we're not doing it. So then we're in the kind of dead end as well. That could be another conversation later on anyway.
Yep, how to get buy-in.
Yeah.
I would love to come back to sort of not just the buy-in, but how to make it fun. I think the sort of competition amongst team members, I think that's a really good one. But one of my personal challenges, or not personal challenges, one of the things I've come up against that gives me the sort of most the biggest challenge to sort of help esports players is, as soon as you sort of log off, as soon as you turn off the computer or sort of disconnect, how do you keep someone invested in or seeing the purpose or the meaning behind the physical activity? How do you help them when you're not physically there with them? And I think setting those challenges and then getting them to check in with the sort of the video updates, I think that's a really good way of doing it. Anything else you'd recommend to sort of, if I'm working with a team, how could I help them increase their physical activity and see the meaning in it?
So me personally, what I do is I do like the challenge side of stuff, and I'll do like weekly check-ins with their team and in one-to-ones. But I've also do a wellness questionnaire, so I get them to fill it out on a weekly basis, just to see how they're doing and stuff like that. So one, it saves me time instead of always contact them. They can also kind of, once they start doing it for long periods of time, I can send them the graph, like, look, this is where you started, and then look where you are now. So it kind of builds that kind of confidence of them, saying like, look, I've improved quite a lot, and they're happy with it, and they're going to keep motivated to keep doing the work that I ask them to do, which I think is quite important as well, to visualize what they've been doing, improving. You might just say, yeah, your sleep's got better, or your reactions got better, and they're like, yeah, great. And if you show them a graph, they're like, okay, that's pretty decent. Or if I can turn it into maybe an aim trainer now, because there's software linked up to gaming like aim trainers. If I can say, look, you're better at aim trainer now, they're going to be like, that's amazing. And then you can link it back to their game as well. So just some examples that I do.
I think that's key. What you said there is, if you can link it back to their performance, they're going to see the benefits and they're going to want to do it. That's the key, from at least what I've found. So I kind of do that too, but not on a weekly basis. And doing it remotely, I found it's kind of challenging. But what I like to do is, if you can gamify it in some ways and have those rewards similar to a game, and then use like positive reinforcement strategies of just letting them know, like, if they're doing a good job. I think that's been helpful in a lot of ways. But of course, being remote based has its challenges. But yeah, showing them the data, showing them the research has been very helpful.
So keeping track, and then occasionally throwing in a reward. Just out of interest, what kind of reward are we talking about? Like a social media post to say great job, or?
It's mostly verbal rewards. Okay. But also like might give them some sort of like authority in like one of our meetings or something like that. Like if nice. They want to talk first, or if they want to pass a question on to someone, they can pick whoever they want to go first. Things like that.
So avoid the jar of Nutella on the doorstep.
That's where I was going.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we should also touch on. So we've talked about increasing the physical activity. engaging in the training, making that fun. Jake, you also mentioned way back at the beginning that some players maybe are resistant because they go maybe too hard too soon. They experience the sort of muscle soreness perhaps, and then they're reluctant to make it a regular part of their routine or do it again. Is there sort of like how much is too much? Is that, I suppose that's the next question. Like, should they be thinking more about the balance of the type of exercise they're doing, or what would you recommend in that sense to recover from it as well?
Yeah, it's a good point. So I try to individualize things as much as possible to the person based on their exercise history and all these other factors, right? But a lot of times I work in groups, so it's hard to do. So you're gonna have to do more general workouts that are gonna work for everybody. But I let people know, like, hey, feel free to add in an extra set or a few extra reps here to really try to increase the dosage for some of the people that may be a little bit more advanced. Whereas the other people then, are still getting their more minimal type workout, but still real hard for them. And you mentioned recovery, and so that's really important. And so I really harp on the players when it comes to like sleep and nutrition, because those are really the big two in my mind. But also doing other active forms of recovery if they have massage or like a Theragun, if they have even compression therapy, things like that. Those all like are really small things that can add up over time.
Yeah, I personally think like, sleep is like the best recovery method for athletes or gamers or general population. I think a lot of people forget about how important sleep is, but it reduces your stress and your anxiety and stuff like that. There's so many benefits to it. Just get into kind of like, I think the range is recommended like 7 to 9 hours sleep is kind of recommended. And a lot of players do not get nowhere near that, or they go the other side and they get way too much. So it's kind of finding that boundary with them as well.
That's a good point. Yeah, you can't, too much is not good as well. You got to be within that range. I think like 8, 9, 10 hours, like around there is pretty good for esports athletes who especially train really heavily. But it's so interesting that sleep is neglected because, they think that the grind, if I play more, then I'm going to get better. But realizing that sleep is an important time for memory consolidation, that's where you really actually like process this information and retain it at a much higher level. And that's how you learn. So by not sleeping, you actually are not reaping as many of the benefits from your practice sessions as you would if you actually got 8 hours of sleep. And so I really try to let players know the importance of that.
That's really interesting. Have you guys, this is, I guess, leading on from how much is too much physical therapy, kind of going the other side of stuff. Have you seen players burn out? And if so, how do you then bring them back from that hole? Because that's a tough spot to be in, and for whatever reason caused that, And if this is your job, or you want it to be your job, how do you sort of bring someone back from being in that hole of burnout?
So for me personally, like in esports, I haven't dealt with anyone kind of in burnout. One of the players I've worked with now, they got burnt out I think it was like a year or two ago before I joined, and they said everything I'm doing that they wish they knew back then. And they said, like, I told them about burnout. I've experienced burnout as well as like an athlete. I used to do rowing, and if you get burnout, you hate training, you hate everything you do. Exactly, and if you're a player, that's the worst atmosphere to be in. So it's important for what we do is slowly bring them back, trying to give them the knowledge and kind of everything they need, the support, for them to kind of come back to kind of full capacity. But it does take a lot of work. You can't just put them straight into the deep end, because they're just going to be like, nah, I don't want to do this. I'm going to retire or something like that. So it's important to just give them an easy guide into like kind of back into everyone else's routine as well.
Yeah, the same for me. I've actually never been working with players who've experienced burnout, but we have questionnaires and things like that. And the data, like most players, at least half of what I've worked with, have burned out at some point in their career. And so I agree with your points, Damien. Is like get them time to get away from playing, decrease their intensity and their volume of gaming, as well as just trying to incorporate things like maybe going for a walk, improve blood flow, start to eat some more nutrition foods, focus on your sleep, and then gradually bring yourself back. I was working with one player who I wouldn't really say was burnt out, but was really getting close to that point. And one of the reasons why is basically playing the same game all the time, every day. And so I recommended to basically just play some other games. It was the first person games that they were playing. And so just play some different first person shooter game. And they did that. And it was nice because it was not as competitive for them. And it was just something different. And so it helped them then when they came back to the game, they actually then got past this plateau that they were at, and they found much more enjoyment out of it. So I think just taking breaks from, if you're playing the game too much and things like that is really important.
So yeah, is that, I mean, reading between the lines, I guess I'm hearing that a lot of your experiences say that a lot of players have experienced burnout of some kind at some point in their career. Is that fair to say?
I personally think so. Yeah.
I feel like. Oh, sorry, mate. Go on.
Oh yeah, I personally feel like it's because of the kind of ecosystem around esports. It is just need to train. But actually, if you kind of schedule their training to be like actual practice is practice, and then they need to have time where they can go on other games, as Jake said, you can kind of get them to go and do different games, different teamwork, kind of outside of the social media and kind of the online platform. It really helps them. And I found that with my players, I say to them, go with your team, maybe go and play Call of Duty instead of they're playing Rainbow Six Siege or something like that, for example. And then they come back and they're like, I actually feel a lot better now. Like, it's this difference in games, but they just feel a lot better in themselves as well.
Yeah,
is that
it's like
reflected though in legacy sports or not? Because I mean, the sort of impression I get is that the sort of culture around esports right now is around the more I play, the better I'll be, 24/7, non-stop. And I guess maybe it's because esports is younger, but at least the impression that I get is that traditional sports have a much lower percentage of burnout with players. Is that something that you guys have seen as well? And esports has a lot more because of that culture, or because everyone's younger? I have no idea, but
I don't know the data on that, but I would say that, like if I had to guess, I would say yes. And it's interesting. One of my colleagues, he made a really good point, is that in esports, especially at the professional level, you're scrimming against other professional players from different teams, and you're doing that for hours every day. Like you don't see that in traditional sports. Like you usually scrimmage against, you have a scrim team that you do that against, right? You practice more time on drills and things like that. But in esports, you're pretty much playing the game all the time, and emotionally, that's extremely draining. That's why you see so many people tilting and all these things like that. So I think that like emotionally and all these other factors, like it has a bigger toll than it does in traditional sports because of that.
That's so interesting. That could be a whole podcast episode in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like the connection that we're sort of alluding to here between using physical activity and exercise as a way of drawing yourself back from the brink, and so like actively incorporating recovery, because recovery isn't just doing nothing. It's maybe taking a break, making a change, getting outside. The green space activity that we're seeing being having some positive results.